Finally, let's learn about the trait called openness to experience. And if you haven't already, that's the 2 items on the 10-item personality inventory. I see myself as open to new experiences, complex. I see myself as conventional and creative. If you add up your score, you'll get a score somewhere in between 2 and 14. And then you can compare it here to this scale, which is taken from an article where researchers gave this scale to hundreds of participants all over North America to find out where that sample and by generality the population falls on the scale. And what you'll notice right away is how skewed the distribution is. The average there is not anywhere near the midpoint of the scale. It's actually quite high, which means you'd have to be agreeing somewhat strongly with the statements about being open to experience in order to actually get an average score on openness to experience. So you have to get all the way up to a 13 or 14 to be considered fairly high, a standard deviation above the mean. And you'd have to get even a score of 9, which you might think would end up being average because it's sort of the midpoint of the scale, ends up actually giving you a fairly low openness to experience score relative to the rest of the population. People who are higher on openness are imaginative, they have a preference for variety, they're curious and flexible and artistic. We were doing this in class and you were rating my personality because by then everyone in the class knows me. So we usually do an activity where students do their own personalities and then they also try to use their educated guesses to fill out the survey to understand my personality. They would find that I'm quite high on openness. I very much am imaginative and have preference for variety and I'm very curious. And that works well for me as a social psychologist and as a university professor in social development studies to be into the big picture and abstract thinking and new ideas. Now, people who are lower on openness could be described as being practical, having a preference for routine. They tend not to like things like trying new foods and visiting new places. It's not that they're scared of that. They just don't enjoy it. If there's one best restaurant in town, why would you try out other restaurants? Just do the thing that you already know you like. I met my husband when I was a student at Waterloo back in the late 90s and early 2000s. And my husband turns out to be very low on openness. And that works very well for him because he's an excellent software developer. Software developing can be done by people of all levels of openness. But in his case, we're doing that sort of linear work where this point leads to this point leads to this point works really well for the way he thinks in a very concrete way. And I feel like the best way to illustrate our differences in openness to experience levels is from early on in our relationship, I stopped at Tim Hortons to buy some donuts. And I thought I'd get 2 for myself and 2 for him. I saw that there were some new kinds, so when I got to the front of the line, I picked 2 new flavors that I hadn't tried before but looked really good, of course, because I'm high on openness to experience. And when it came to choose what flavor I should get for him, I knew his favorite was honey dip. So I ordered 1 honey dip, and then I paused to wonder, what should I get him for the second donut? And I thought about it about as long as it's sort of reasonably to when there's a lineup behind you. And then finally, I just picked chocolate, one of the chocolate kinds, because I knew he liked chocolate bars. So when I got back, I gave him his 2 donuts and I said, I know your favorite's honey dip, but in the future, what should I have gotten you for your second donut? And he said, honey dip. I said, why would you want 2 of the same donut? And he was like, why would I want a different donut if there's one best donut? Like if I have a favorite donut, why would I have a different kind of donut just to not have that favorite kind? Because he's lower on openness. And we spent all those years since then, I think, being like, but how could you not want this? How would you not want your favorite donut? He would say to me. And I'm saying, but why would you want 2 of the same donut? And I think that captures a lot about what high openness to experience and low openness to experience is like. It has a lot to do with preference for variety. So to sum up the big 5 factors, if this was going to be on a test, you'd want to remember these by looking at the first letter of each variable and seeing how they spell ocean. Or if you want to rearrange them a little bit and you prefer, you can have them spell canoe. And that's a handy mnemonic device to be able to remember them. Coming up next, will this be on the test?